Dear everyone, greetings from Asian Productivity Organization. This is live from the APO Secretariat Office in Tokyo, Japan, and we welcome all our viewers from APO member countries and beyond. I am Asai Thambi Manikam, your moderator for today's topic, and thanks to our viewers for joining us on this grand finale of 2022 APO Productivity Talk series. And today we will discuss about the key insights from the APO Productivity Databook 2022. To discuss in detail about the topic, I am honored to have two distinguished speakers, Dr. Minh Khuong, Associate Professor, Kuan, School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore, and Ms. Sarimah Binti Talib, Vice President, Sustainability and External Relations, Bumi Armada, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Dear viewers, before we proceed with our guest speakers, today being a grand finale day of this year P-Talk series, it's my great pleasure and honor to welcome the APO Secretary General, Dr. Indra Pradana Singavinatha, to give his opening remarks about the P-Talk and today's topic. Dr. Indra Pradana, please.
Dear viewers, greetings from the APO Secretariat in Tokyo. Thank you very much for watching the APO's productivity talks throughout 2022, interacting with the speakers and leaving your comments and suggestions. The P-Talk series offers a platform for representing and discussing ideas to resolve specific productivity challenges in APO member countries and beyond. P-Talks originally started as a response to the program delivery constraint caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. But finally, they quickly took center stage and became the flagship program. Today is the final P-Talk session for 2022. This year, we choose productivity, rebound, and regrowth as the main theme of discussion. Under this theme, the APO has delivered 43 sessions and introduced 48 resource persons from various backgrounds with the diverse areas of expertise to discuss productivity topics related to the impact of the pandemic on different sectors. Those sessions garnered over 40,000 views, attracted around 700 new subscribers to the APO YouTube channel. Today, the two distinguished speakers will provide an overview of insights on productivity issues over the past year. The 2022 edition of the APO Productivity Databook aims to support APO member economies in coping with current challenges, including post-pandemic revival, and contribute to their sustainable socioeconomic development through enhancing productivity. It focuses on the quality of economic and productivity growth with comparisons among APO members at different development stages. It covers Asian economic development from 1970 to 2020, with projections of economic growth and labor productivity improvement through 2030. The APO will continue P-Talks exploration in 2023 under the new theme, Transformation and Productivity. We will make every effort to present diverse perspective on productivity-related issues under this theme affecting the Asia-Pacific region in particular, as well as other parts of the world. I hope that you will continue watching the P-Talks and look forward to your interactive engagement in the coming year. Thank you very much and best wishes for healthy, productive 2023. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Indra Pradana, for your opening remarks. Dear viewers, let me quickly give brief intro about APO productivity and database. In our role as a think tank, At APO, for the last 15 years, we conduct annual productivity measurement research that captures productivity trends and economic growth performance in member countries and reference regions to assist economic analysis, policymakers, and development planners to analyze national productivity performance and socio-economic progress. The results are published in the annual APO Productivity Databook. The productivity database and APO productivity data book are the two outputs that the APO publishes on this productivity measurement research. The productivity database is constructed under an internationally harmonized measurement framework, allows cross-country productivity analysis and comparisons, and can be accessed on the APO website, as you can see. The APO Productivity Databook is a hallmark publication presenting detailed analytical reports on recent productivity trends and economic performance in the Asia Pacific and reference economies. The publication is used to support evidence-based policy making by APO members and serves as a main source of productivity statistics in the Asia Pacific. The 2022 edition of the APO Productivity Databook has been published recently, and it was a joint collaboration research with the Keio Economic Observatory Research team of Keio University, Tokyo. You can find the latest and previous years of APO Productivity Databook in our homepage and download it. To explain the key insights of 2022 APO Productivity Databook and 2023 Outlook, I'd like to invite one of our guest speakers today, Dr. Wu. Actually, Dr. Wu joined our this year's opening P-Talk in January, during which he talked on the theme of productivity rebound and regrowth. Today, he's here with us to give more insights about the productivity trend in APO member economies in 2022. Without further ado, I am very much delighted to welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Wu. How are you today, Dr. Wu?
I'm okay. Thank you, Asai.
Thank you so much. Dear viewers, before we get into further detailed discussion on the topic, we would like to encourage our viewers to send your questions and comments in the chat box with your name and country, and we would respond to your questions during Q&A session. Dr. Wu, now the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. In less than 2 weeks, we are going to welcome the new year of 2023. I'm delighted to have this opportunity on this great P-Talk platform to share with you some reflection of 2022 and present some valuable insight we can learn from the APO Productivity Databooks published just recently in October of 2022. And I also offer you some view of my outlook for 2023. So 2022 in hindsight, what should we learn? So here actually the latest information we get from ADB report, the December report. So just published, a few days ago. And here I would like to share with you what I predict for 2022 and 2023. And for us to have some imagination of what have been going in the last year. I also to actually include in this figure the prediction we make in December 2021. And now prediction in 2022, it means 1 year difference. So actually what the major difference we see here for developing Asia, and the salient point here, actually we can see right away, it means the GDP growth slowed down than we expected. In December 2021, we expected developing Asia should be 5.3%. Of course, lower than 2021 because 2021 is a recovering year. 2022 it becomes stable. But we thought actually 5.3, but now it becomes just 4.2. And in 2023, we going down. In September, we projected the 2023 to be 4.9, but now just 4.6. So somehow, the dynamics of economic growth seem to be worsening. Inflation at the same time, in contrast, actually picking up. So lowering growth and increasing inflation. However, the good thing actually, we should point out here a few things here. The first one, anyway, Asia is still in fairly good situation of economic growth, slowing down, but still comfortable compared to other regions. And inflation actually somehow quite manageable. I don't see a 2-digit here. So just around 3 to 5% in most countries. That's excellent. And I think a bright issue here, we actually stand out here. South Asia turned out to be a good performer in this year. Last December, we expected it's actually improved only from 3.3 to 5.1. And now in December, actually, you can see 5.5. And of course, 2023, because, ASEAN country, as we know, influenced by external environment. The economic growth in the US, EU, the major trade partner have problem. So definitely slowing down, but still actually fairly good and much better than 2021. So Southeast Asia is something good. We can look for, see in 2022. And also have a good expectation for 2023. India, also a very good performer among us South Asian country. Also here I don't have the Bangladesh, but that's a good one. China, surprisingly, actually, we thought actually in December 2021 it should grow at 5.3%. But December now is at 3%, and it's mainly caused by the zero COVID policy. But we hope that China actually drastically change this policy and improve their growth next year. So anyway, now I would like to share you some hindsight of 2022. Next slide here. So last year, no, not last year, in January, on my P talk on 18 January, we actually here we thought predictability is the nature of this day, and in the time forward onward, actually we should expect something very unpredictable or even unthinkable. So in January 2022, we actually suspect that some COVID-19 outbreak could cause new variants and policy uncertainty, geopolitical tensions. And we see the supply chain disruption and inflation. At that time, we just thought that healthcare costs or cost of production, supply chains, or climate change could cause some trouble. But here's the big surprises in 2022, and we just learned along the way. In 2022, the first one is really, really unthinkable. Russia-Ukraine war. We could not imagine that a great nation like Russia could invade, their neighbor and killing their neighbor with very massive, weapon, mass destruction weapon, and it caused oil price and inflation going up across the world. And in response to this challenge, the Fed interest rate hikes and causing a lot of problem around the world, and exchange rates. The dollars actually get stronger compared to most countries, and uncertainty remain very serious this day. We do not know what would happen next, and many things actually could be consequences of Russian-Ukraine war. So here is something big unknown. We do not know. The second one, China zero COVID policy. We didn't expect that China actually to be so rigid on this policy, and it takes a whole year. So the economic growth in China slowing down significantly, and that's got a lot of problem. Because China is the manufacturing hub of the whole world. However, the good news is actually the China actually going to remove the restriction. So maybe, may have some present surprise next year because, China emerged stronger after the COVID. And a surprise here, I mentioned to you earlier on, ASEAN actually beat projection on GDP growth. So I see here the interesting story in the Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia. That's amazing. Definitely. So we should think about surprises here, not only unpleasant or unthinkable, but something also quite pleasant and very encouraging. So now APO Databook 2022, through my, career, academic career, I do believe that this one of the most important publication we should have for productivity analysis and policy, formulation. The data book published annually, usually at the end in the last quarter of each year, and offer us a lot of insight with very diligent, analysis and very rigorous methodology. And the author here is Koji Nomura, who actually sat at Harvard with me for a couple of years there, and Dr. Fukunara Kimura, very competent people. I'm delighted that APO actually work closely with Keio University on this very important project, very meaningful project, especially for Asia. So APO Databook, actually, as I have actually introduced to you, it covers 31 Asian economy with the US as a reference economy over the period of 21 years from 1970 to 2020. Very rich data. And the report also provides some aggregate results for the economy groups like APO 21, East Asia, South Asia, CLMV, it means Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam, and ASEAN 6, it means the remaining 6 countries of ASEAN. And here I would like to point out a very important feature of this data book. I really like it. Actually, it projects GDP growth and labor productivity improvement for individual member economy over 2022, 2020-25, and 2025-2030. And the methodology used for this projection, I think that's excellent. Very good one. Very, very helpful, and can give the policymaker a lot of inputs for what they have to do next to achieve realize this projection. Here, because time actually limited, so I just share you briefly the 7 findings. I think quite important for all of us to know. The first one is just level and dynamic of productivity improvement and income catch up. The second one, the sources of GDP and labor productivity growth. The third one, FDI inflows. The fourth one, trade gain effects and policy implication. And here I really like actually this discussion I talked to you later on, because this day we are watching the World Cup in Qatar. You can see how some country responds actually to some challenges they face with a very brilliant efforts. And the demographic dividends faced by some country and also quite interesting. Projection of GDP and productivity growth until 2030, and sources of CO2 emission. So the first one is the level of productivity. Here the data, because we have the data for up to 2020, and also see the dynamic of economic of income catch-up. So the data book gives us very clear picture where each country is on labor productivity in comparison to the US. So the first figure here is mean how much an average worker can produce per year. And the figure in parentheses actually the proportion, how much actually it is compared to the US. If you take the US to be 100. So for example, if we look at the Vietnam, actually Vietnam here, we can see an average worker can produce $14.1 thousand per year. in purchasing power parity, and in terms of relative to the US, it's around 10%. So it's been long way for Vietnam to become a high income nation. So if you want to become the high income nation by 2025, as envisioned by Vietnamese leadership, we make extraordinary efforts. And here I would like to emphasize that labor productivity is very important issue because it's tangible, it's very clear, very straightforward to calculate, but also mean that the wage of the worker usually 50% of this labor productivity. So if you want your worker, average worker, make more than $500 or $700 per month, definitely we have to increase labor productivity. Here is this book also gives us very clear picture about the catching up, among the country or group of countries. So here you can see that China, after the economic reform, actually it moved very fast from very low income, actually poorest nation in Asia, and now actually surpassed CLMV and now surpassed ASEAN 6, and going for rising quite rapidly up to now. We do not know what happened next, but definitely we can see some growth slowdown here. So here's some projection. We do not know yet. ASEAN 6 also improved so after the COVID here. India also picking up. That's quite interesting dynamic. You see this day, for the first time, we can see the growth in South Asian country, especially India, exceeding 7%. That's something we could not imagine. That's Asian miracle before. And CLMV also tried improve, so here we can see some, very vibrant dynamic of economic catching up in Asia, both East Asia, South Asia, and South Asia. That's very healthy dynamic. So GDP growth, I really like the feature of this book because they can actually help us to quantify how much, each source of GDP growth contribute to GDP growth per country. And here you can see the from high to low, the high performer to low performer for the period, for 2012 from 2000 to 2020, so over the past 2 decades. So China on the top, and here the sources of growth, here they use a growth accounting to give us actually the capital accumulation for how much? So 5.3%. So capital investment on way the key driver, major sources of GDP growth. And then TFP also a strong one. You can see here of 1.2. That's key thing. And labor quality also important, and the digital transformation. It means the ICT investment important as well. So China actually command the high growth here. And coming quite robust from different sources here. And you can see some country here, like Myanmar, Brunei, have problem with their TFP growth, too poor, very poor TFP growth. That's also a problem. So that the actual growth accounting give us not only not only quantify the how much each source of growth contribute to GDP growth, but also actually give us the good idea about the share of each one. For example, we can say for China, 70% of their GDP growth come from non-ICT investment. And the ICT here 8%, and TFP 50% of their growth. So look at the case of India. You can see here. So India actually, the reform in India so far, I think worked quite well. So release a lot of idle resources. So that's why they improve, they reduce the inefficiency. That's why TFP growth in India, I don't think it come from the innovation yet, but from reducing inefficiency. So 25.7%. and the investment 44%. That's also actually the percentage share also important for us to learn about GDP growth. We also learn more about labor productivity, the sources of labor productivity growth, because as you know, labor productivity growth comes from the capital deepening. It means how much capital per an average worker can have for their work, and their quality. It means their education and skill, and the last one is total factor productivity. And here we also have the very good picture about the country and the region. So China, India seem to be the best performer on labor productivity improvement. So that actually a good news for Asia, because productivity is a very important measure of prosperity. So these two major nation, 1.5, 1.4 billion people age improving. So if everything going smoothly, peacefully, Asia will be rising, and definitely actually the major power of the world. So definitely, and so you can see labor productivity fairly improve fairly well in many countries here. So especially the CM, so Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam. Except for Myanmar recently, but you can see Vietnam also the next one, quite a strong player here after India and China. And we can also see the share of each sources of each source in driving labor productivity. For Vietnam recently improved a lot the quality of growth. So TFP growth actually much higher than now, but over the past 20 years, not so good. So just 4%. So also a major concern. So investment, so labor productivity come mostly in the past until 2015. Come from capital deepening, but now is the last 8 years, definitely Vietnam have improved a lot, focus a lot more on to the factor productivity. So the quality of growth actually a lot better. The next one, actually, the socioeconomic growth. Not only we can now learn about the economic growth from the accounting perspective method, but also here this data book gives us very clear quantification of industry origins of GDP and labor productivity growth. So we know there's a share. So agriculture, manufacturing, services, different type of services, and mining and electricity, whatever. So here, here is, I think, quite important finding. We can see in this two figures here. The book actually ranks the country by here the left side here GDP per capita, the richest one on the top and the poorest one on the lowest here in the bottom, and the right side here and the left side here we have value added share by sector. And here I would like you to pay attention to the share of agriculture sector. So the poorest country usually have large value added share in GDP. And employment share here ordered by labor productivity. The top one on the top is highest labor productivity, and in the bottom is the country with lower labor productivity. And also the employment share of agriculture are also very large. So here actually very powerful implication here. If you want to make the country richer and higher productivity, definitely removing labor from reallocating people from agriculture sector and less dependent on agriculture is somehow quite important strategic direction to move up the per capita income and labor productivity. I also want to point out here some quite meaningful actually insight we have from the books analysis on industry origins of GDP and labor productivity growth. So I look at the contribution of manufacturing sector to GDP growth and labor productivity growth. And here's a case of Vietnam, for example. So here they have the data for two periods. Here 2010 to 2020. So 10-year period. So we look at the Vietnam case here. Manufacturing sector actually account for nearly a quarter of GDP growth. Quite important. So it means manufacturing expanding, manufacturing sector quite important. In 2010, it account only 33%, but 2010 to 2020, it 26%. It means manufacturing sector become very important for Vietnam in driving GDP growth. However, if you look at the contribution of manufacturing sector to labor productivity growth, we see the Vietnam here much lower than this level. So only 18% in 2010 and now reduced to 14%. So here's a very powerful policy implication. So actually I have brought up this issue to Vietnam. So definitely we enjoy a lot of growth generated by manufacturing sector, but however we overlook the effort to improve labor productivity in this sector. So the sector expansion mainly driven by employment expansion and not sustainable. Definitely labor productivity actually is not growing rapidly in this sector like in some other country. Before we see in Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, China. So definitely, if you really want to promote, the manufacturing sector as a driver of prosperity, we have to improve labor productivity in this sector more. So it at least, account for also 25% of labor productivity, not 14, not the decline from 18 to 14. So have to move up here. So usually in that country, the contribution of the manufacturing sector to LP labor productivity growth usually larger than the GDP growth. That's better. It means we become a lot more competitive, not only attractive in terms of location investment. That's such important implication. FDI inflows as percentage of GDP. I also really like this one. Because you can see some top player here. So Vietnam quite successful in attracting, foreign direct investment to the country. So in terms of GFCF, it means the physical capital, growth fixed capital formation. So it means total investment. So for Vietnam, 25%. Philippines only 6 or 8%. And you can see the two period here. Three time milestone here, 2015, 2019, or 2020. And they show that business environment definitely very important. So if you have more attractive business environment, you can attract more FDI inflows as a share of your capital investment. And Vietnam somehow outlier here. So Vietnam did extremely well on attracting investment. However, he also policy implication. If as a policy analyst, you can see definitely somehow we have to increase, promote domestic investment rather than heavily rely on, foreign investment. So it's fair to attract as much as possible FDI, but we have to attract a lot more local domestic investment to make your success more sustainable. Trading gains affect labor productivity growth. I think also quite a distinctive insight I learned from this in this data book. I think quite interesting because the standard of living of a nation depend not only labor productivity for sure. However, it also depend on the trading gain effect. It means what you export value more than what you import. Like this day, the oil-rich country enjoy a lot more because they export something, but they can buy a lot of goods at lower price. Why actually the oil price going up a lot? So trading gain effect, it also a big contributor to the welfare of a nation. And and here you can see many countries enjoy this thing. It means what they export actually can buy more for their import. So the better off. But the book actually give us very important warning that, because when we enjoy the trading gain effect, usually you overlook the efforts to improve productivity, and definitely commodity price going up, but then going down sometime for sure. So we may become the victim of success one day. So here I really like this figure actually presented by the book. That's interesting because Middle East country now seem to be more aggressive, more effective than ASEAN country in reducing their dependence on the mining sector. They enjoy a lot of good things from oil price going up, but they know that actually they face some challenges in the future. So the success of the Qatar World Cup today, I think that's amazing. So they decisively reduce their dependence on the mining sector. So after 20 years, you can see they reduce their dependence on mining from nearly 60%, now just 35%, much lower than Brunei. Here in ASEAN, we say Brunei, Malaysia, and Indonesia actually do not make serious efforts in reducing their dependence on the mining sector. That's somehow an issue we should discuss when we have more time. Another issue, I think the book point out very clearly, it means the demographic dividend actually will disappear for some country like Japan before. So if the workforce divided by the dependent population below 2.0 and lower, it means we're facing serious problem of population aging and the healthcare costs, social costs for the elderly, and the economy become less vibrant. So some countries facing this problem. In Japan, you can see Thailand and Vietnam, going down here. That's problem. And China also a problem. Is a very near future. So if we do not become rich like Japan, we face a problem of getting poor before getting old before getting rich. So getting old before getting rich. This is the major problem many countries were very much worry about. So that's why I think on Asian nation now should avoid any conflicts as much as possible to focus totally on creating prosperity, improving labor productivity, and enhancing their partnership for peaceful collaboration rather than engage in some war, whatever, for whatever reason not make sense anymore in the 21st century when the population population in more countries facing the looming problem of population aging. For projection of GDP and labor productivity growth, I really like the novel approach by the book. Definitely, I think Cozy and his co-author are actually brilliant in making some assumption here to predict what would happen in the next 10 years. And he looked at the historical part observed for Japan, because Japan actually pioneering country become a prosperous nation. And he looked at, because in projecting productivity growth, labor productivity growth, you only have to start with the capital deepening, how much investment we make. That's important thing. And then total factor productivity and labor quality. But the capital deepening quite important. So we look at the case of Japan. You can see, for example, Vietnam below the Japan pattern here, or China quite higher than Japan pattern. So if suppose we try to converse to the Japan pattern, Vietnam, it means if Vietnam make the the economy more attractive for not only foreign investment but also domestic investment, they can improve their labor productivity a lot, improve capital deepening a lot. So we see the potential for some country below this curve, Japan pass here, trajectory here to improve their productivity, like Philippines, Thailand, Sri Lanka. This country actually have made more effective effort to improve their investment. So Indonesia, Turkey here, So it's quite interesting. I really like this approach because I have done a lot of projection before, but I think this one somehow quite convincing. Um, and he come up with the projection for labor productivity for 2025 and 2030. So look at the case of Vietnam. What you observe so far is 5%, up to 5% for 2010 to 2020. That's around actually. But 2020 to 2025, the next 5 years, because of the COVID things, 4.8%. But if Vietnam follow the Japan pattern, it could raise labor productivity to 6.8%. That's amazing. Bangladesh also follow the same thing. So I think Bangladesh also great economy. You can see in the time forward. I look at the pattern of growth in Bangladesh recently. It's very encouraging news. And you can also see India here, also good thing, 6.4%. But China may be going down to just 4.4% because they invest too much already. So definitely it less sustainable. It may converge to the Japan level. So that's what you can expect. And GDP growth, actually just a little labor productivity growth plus the projection for employment growth. So employment growth is usually around 1% for most countries. So here we rely on the UN data for this one, and the book actually does this very well. So so Vietnam we can expect, for example, grow at 7.8%, or Bangladesh may to be 8.3% for 2025, 2030. But however, here's optimistic one. It means this kind of economy have to actually adopt the Japan model. So it may have to make very extraordinary effort to catch up with most advanced nations. But it's feasible. I agree with the author that it's feasible. I also like actually the analysis here for decomposing the sources of emission because on country, try to reduce COE emissions some 10 years from now. It should be peak at 2030 or 2035. But for now, some country CO emissions still growing. And they decompose in three sources here. The very first one, for example, for Vietnam, 6% actually come from, so totally CO2 emission increased by 9.8% each year over the past 20 years, 2000 to 2019. And 6% is due to the GDP expansion. We produce more, definitely we need more fuel. So CO growing up for sure. But also 5% come from the intensity. It means we use somehow not clean fuel, like use too much coal. That's not good thing. So 5% here. And of course, we make some effort to improve the energy productivity. It means for unit of GDP, use less fuel energy. That's a good thing. So anyway, but it's still around 10%. That's not good because you actually in the recent ASEAN EU summit, our Prime Minister here promised that actually we, with the assistance of international partner, we actually peak CO2 emission in peak at 2030 and declining rapidly afterwards, so that we can realize our commitment to net zero by 2050. So 2023 outlooks here. First one, so here that actually the recent forecast by the IMF report give us a picture of the global economy. So we can see that 2021 is recovery, 2022 some struggling 3.2%, but 23 2.7%. So it means slowing down further, especially among advanced economy, from 5.2 to 2.4, 1.1. Only here I see the quite the resilient performance of Japan. That's a good thing for 1.7, 1.7, 1.6. but euro area problem like Germany. So it means the euro country more actually influenced by the Russia Ukraine war and the oil problem here affected a lot more. So even Spain also actually declines a lot on growth. And you also see that the adjustment over time keep going down for Europe. It means things seem to be worsening, so they adjust negatively. So it means things getting worse rather than better. However, a lot of uncertainty we do not know. The good news here is that China actually removing their zero COVID policy, so it could pick up. So we can see a lot of tourists from China come actually back to in most country. Usually Chinese tourists account for 1/3 or 1/4 of tourists the visitor to most countries. So that's important thing. So India still sustain growing, slowing down, but still okay. Over 6% for the large economy like India is good thing. And ASEAN, 2022 and 2023 is much better than 2021. Only Russia, still suffer from negative growth. Other countries enjoy positive growth. That's a good thing. But here, actually, the information we just received recently. So here is important thing. Definitely the slowing down, the recession, growth in the major economy like the US and EU affect Asian economy. So except for India here, improving in terms of export order. So good thing for India because because investors reallocate a lot of investment from China to India. So improving here, and I think India also actually have implemented fairly good economic reform, so improving. But other country problem, including China, Vietnam, Indonesia, Taipei here, we can see export order declining. So expectation not so good for export. So we can see some company definitely laying off the workers. And purchasing manager index, it means production one, except for India and the Philippines. I also see some very encouraging news from Philippines. I'm working with policymakers there. I see a lot of sentiment of reform there. That's a good thing. And India actually also recovering. I think good thing. But the momentum actually somehow face some problem here. Vietnam, Taipei, and Malaysia. That's something we should concern about. And the December release of the ADB report tell us that actually definitely GDP growth slowing down. Okay, but not so much. China picking up, and Southeast Asia still sustain fairly good growth around 5%. So the thing not so brilliant. However, still good thing. For Asia. So I think you should appreciate the effort of APO to foster this dynamic. So you can see here in terms of GDP growth, developing Asia perform much better than any other region here. Higher, 2022 and 2023 better off, developing Asia. And inflation also in control, below 5%. So overall, I think our Asia in a fairly good shape for the 2023. Of course, a lot of uncertainty and challenges still awaiting for us. But that's all I would like to share with you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wu, for your wonderful and detailed presentation, which was very informative. You have nicely covered all the key insights of the 2022 APO Productivity Databook in details. And also, it was an eye-opening session to learn the productivity trend in 2022 and the outlook in 2023. But with a lot of uncertainties expected in 2023, which might slow down the economic countries across the globe, particularly in the developed countries. You mentioned that lot of factors favoring positive productive growth in Asia, particularly in India and some other South Asian countries, which is quite good for Asian perspective. And also you are touched upon like the sources of carbon emission growth. So that was a kind of a very informative session from your presentation. I believe we have got a lot of questions from the audience, and we shall discuss in detail during Q&A session. Now it's time for me to invite our second guest speaker for today, Ms. Sarimah from Malaysia. Ms. Sarimah is a sustainability expert from Bumi Armada, and she will explain about the productivity trend in industry sector and focus more on Malaysia perspective. Sarima, now the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Asay, and a very warm greeting from Malaysia, and salam sejahtera. So welcome to our distinguished virtual participants, wherever you are, who are joining us today. Firstly, I would like to congratulate Asia Pacific Organization for the great effort that they have invested in publishing the APO Databook 2022. And I think a lot of work and resources have been put into this data book. And from the industry perspective, we are the beneficiaries of this very insightful pack of information. Kudos to the APO, yeah? Right. Let me, before I begin with the overarching global agenda, I would like to show you a video which my APO counterpart will help me prepare. Thank you very much. And I hope that video will be able to provide you some information about what Sustainable Development Goals is all about, yeah? So, okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think let me start my sharing with you. Actually, the Sustainable Development Agenda 2030 that you have seen before in the video was adopted by the United Nations member states in the year of 2015. And this has provides a shared blueprint for a peace and prosperity for the people and the planet now as well as in the future. And is heart of the 17 SDGs, which are an urgent call for action by all countries, developed and developing in a global partnership. They recognize the ending poverty and the other deprivations must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth while tackling climate change, as what Dr. Vu has mentioned earlier, and working to preserve our oceans and forests. So that's a very holistic goal that has been set, yeah? Right. Next, critically focusing on productivity, focusing on the overarching framework for the countries to tackle the achievement of several sustainable development goals, yeah? So this is very important because it can play a pivotal role in guiding and facilitating the shift to such a development model, as investing in the Sustainable Development Goals will also foster productivity growth, creating a virtuous cycle between sustainable development and productivity. Yeah. And in prevailing the development challenges facing the Asia-Pacific region, member states therefore need to embrace fully the Sustainable Development Goals. So let me go into the Malaysia perspective, as Dr. Asai has mentioned. For Malaysia, the Malaysia's prosperity focus area covers 5 sustainable development goals, namely Goal 7, which is affordable and clean energy, Goal 8, which is decent work and economic growth, Goal number 9, which is industry, innovation and infrastructure, Goal 10, which is reduce inequalities, and last but not least is Goal 11, which is sustainable cities and communities. Yeah. So based on the relevant indicators at the global level for these focus areas, Malaysia has recorded a 16% increase to 71% as compared to 55% in the previous year. Right. Let me go to the next one. So I think most of us are fully aware, it has been mentioned earlier by Dr. Wu and Dr. Asai, that the COVID-19 crisis has opened a deep economic scars in the Asia and Pacific region that are unlikely to heal even in the medium term. So the year of 2022 began with a promise for higher productivity, given that signs of recovery in 2021 when productivity grew to 1.8% after a contraction of negative 5.3% in the year of 2020 due to the impact of the pandemic. Malaysia is still struggling with the repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the country has not returned to its pre-pandemic normalcy yet. As we speak, nevertheless, the future outlook is very promising for the country. And the growth momentum is expected as Malaysia is facing into the endemic period with the entire economic reopening. So global productivity is recuperating at a fast speed. Countries globally have shown tremendous economic growth, rising beyond the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Restrictive measures were relaxed and eliminated as they move into the endemic era. As a result, economic activities are more vibrant, and some countries have returned to the pre-pandemic growth. Productivity level increases as business workers assimilate to the new mode of work. Yeah, just like what we're having now, we're having a virtual, conference. Yeah, and after the strong rebound of 6.5% posted in 2021. Last year, a growth in Asia Pacific is expected to moderate to 4.0% in 2022 amid the uncertain global environment and rise to 4.3% in 2023. With reference to the APO Databook, it is indicative that based on the GDP at constant basic prices per hour worked, US labor productivity has sustained a sizable gap over the Asian high performers. It is also a demonstration of the productivity gap between these countries and how they are catching up at an accelerated pace. As for the Malaysia, these factors lead to productivity growth projected at 3.6% in 2022 this year. Subsequently, this contributes to economic recovery and sustainable growth. And now let's zoom into the economic performance of Malaysia for 2023 and beyond. Yeah, so this is very important for us to see how is the outlook going to be. So if you look at this diagram, you can see that Malaysia's economy continued to expand by 14.2% as compared to 8.9% in the second quarter of 2022. And the strong growth was also observed in the preceding quarter of this year as the country moved towards endemicity and the reopening of international borders. Yeah. Malaysia's labor productivity expressed in terms of value added per hour worked improved 3.8% year on year as the country's gross domestic product or GDP further expanded at 14.2% as compared to 8.9% in the last quarter, while the total hours worked went up 10.0% from 7.5% in quarter 2 of 2022. Labor productivity as measured by value added per employment rose 10.1% versus 5.2% in quarter 2 2022, as total employment increased to 3.6% versus 3.2% in quarter 2 2022. The main sector in Malaysia, which are services, further increased by 16.7% as compared to 12.0% in the second quarter. of 2022. Yeah. And all subsectors registered positive growth, particularly in the wholesale and retail trade, transport and storage, food and beverage, and accommodation subsectors, which recorded double-digit growth in this quarter. The manufacturing sector accelerated to 13.2% as compared to 9.2% in the second quarter of 2022. The favorable performance was propelled by the electrical, electronic, and optical products, which pick up further to 17.3%, followed by the transport equipment, other manufacturing and repair, which is clocking at 36.9%, and non-metallic mineral products, basic metal, and fabricated metal products at 13.3% subsectors. And moving on, besides the agriculture sector, which is one of the main sector in Malaysia, turned around to 1.2% from a decline of 2.4% in the second quarter of this year. And the growth was underpinned by the oil palm, which is 5.1%, fishing 3.8%, and livestock, which is 2.5% in terms of its subsectors. Next, we'll go to the mining and quarrying sector, which has rebounded 9.2% in the third quarter of 2022 from a decline of 0.5% in quarter 2 2022. The growth was supported by robust performance in all sectors, mainly from natural gas, which contribute 13.6%, followed by crude oil and condensate, which is 2.5%. The construction sector expanded to 15.3% from 2.4% in the preceding quarter, and the performance was driven by non-residential buildings and specialized construction activities, which expanded to 30.5% and 13.7% respectively. Next is I'm going to show you that with reference to the APO Databook 2022, which has been very, very beneficial, Malaysia has shown improvement in productivity for both per worker and per hour labor productivity levels. This means that this is a forecast that has been done until 2023. And in this slide, you can see that when we talk about productivity, we cannot avoid from talking about talent. And both factors of talent and productivity are highly correlated. Malaysia's performance in the World Talent Ranking is positioned at 28th spot in 2021, and the country is continuously enhancing its human capital strategies to maintain our competitiveness sustainably. Yeah. And looking into the outlook of 2023, I would say that as a takeaway, I wish to highlight that industries are fully geared to embrace the recovery at an accelerated pace because we cannot afford to lose out in this new era of post-COVID. And industries need to embrace innovation in its processes, talent management, and build bigger appetite for digitalization. Industries cannot work the way it used to be doing the same anymore. And process improvement should be the key priority in increasing organizational efficiency. Continuous improvement tools like QCC, Lean, and Six Sigma should be used more objectively, irrespective of which industries that we are in. APO and NPOs can be great platforms for industries to share their experience, including lessons learned to accelerate the embracement of these tools in more non-traditional industries, especially the emerging ones like startups, digital space, and clean technology. Knowledge management is critical because it is the proprietary of an organization and it is the intellectual property that ensure the management of information being managed to lead towards better decision-making. Finally, industries must collaborate between inter and intra-industries to form strategic alliance and push forward a stronger regional agenda for the greater benefits of ASEAN collectively. Finally, I would like to leave you with a quote. Small habits don't add up, they compound. And that's the power of atomic habits. Tiny changes, remarkable results. With that, thank you very much. And I really thank you for your passion and attention. And I do hope that the session has benefited you a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sarimah, for your wonderful and detailed presentation, which was very informative from Malaysian perspective. You also nicely explained the productivity growth trend in Malaysia and particularly focusing on the industry perspective. And also you have shown the key drivers to accelerate recovery, like innovation, process improvement, capacity building, knowledge management, and smart partnership. And I believe that moving forward also looks very significant positive impact and outlook for Malaysia in 2023. Thanks again for sharing your thoughts with us. And now we open the floor for questions. And yes, and my first question goes to Dr. Wu. So, Dr. Wu, so here is the question for you. So, what are the main trends of the productivity growth which we can learn from the APO Productivity Databook in 2020-22?
Thank you, Dr. Asai. The APO data book give us a lot of insight into the trends of labor productivity in Asian country. So here is a few things I would like to summarize. The very first one, you can see that the major drivers of labor productivity actually are the capital deepening and total factor productivity. So here we have to emphasize importance of capital deepening in addition to TFP. If we just focus on TFP, somehow it be affected by some assumption and also external environment demand going down. We do not know why. So even we do a lot of innovation, but we still suffer, from the market, contraction, something like that. So capital deepening help us a lot to improve the capacity here for producing and improving efficiency here. So the trend actually for the country achieving the high labor productivity growth actually come from two sources. So they have to make very serious effort in improving the business environment, and also have to promote innovation and technology acquisition. So here we can see some trend here. Some country actually face problem of productivity going down, but then they make serious effort to improve. So it's a V curve. Like a Turkey, for example. So it means actually policy intervention and leadership play a very important role here. But you also see that some country after the reform, like China, India, sustain fairly high, fairly robust productivity growth coming not only from capital deepening, but also total factor productivity, and somehow the economy, the scales help them a lot because they foster the mobility of resources, labor from one place to other place, or something like that. So structural change help them a lot as well. In some country like some economy like Taiwan and South Korea, definitely they enjoy they very strong on innovation. So their total factor productivity, labor productivity improvement actually stay at high level on the time. So that's a few trend I would like to point out here with you from the data book. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wu. Thanks a lot for your additional insights on that productivity trend. Now, my next question goes to Ms. Sarimah. Ms. Sarimah, you have mentioned that productivity is interlinked to the UN SDGs. Can you give some examples on how the link is connected between the productivity and SDGs?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sai. I think this is a very important question, and how I can sort of like create that link is, for instance, the social policies that contribute to expanding investment in health and education to reach Goal 3, for example, is to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. And goal number 4, which is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all, will strengthen productivity by improving the skills in the labor force. Similarly, economic and sectoral policies may strengthen productivity if they ensure accessible to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy. Under Goal 7, and build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation, which is under Goals 9. So that's how the interlink happens between productivity and SDGs. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that insights as well from you, Ms. Sarimah. My next question now goes to Dr. Wu. So you've been mentioning that from your presentation that maybe I would like to connect about the embracing the productivity as the main driver of economic growth and why it becomes so vital for many countries. Could you give your opinion on that?
Sure, that's an excellent question. Definitely, as you know, labor productivity cover the compensation for the workers and the capital income. It means making the investment more attractive. So if we do not improve labor productivity, it's impossible for a country to pay the worker higher compensation and remain attractive to investor. So labor productivity become a very key issue. That's one thing for sure. But another issue facing some country like China or Thailand or soon for Vietnam, because we are facing the population aging problem. So it means in the past, it's possible for you to improve to increase the per capita income by not only raising the labor productivity, but also attracting more people to the workforce. So it means employment rate could go from 50%, 45% to 55, 56, 7, 60%. But now, for the case of China, for example, in 2010, the employment rate is 57%, but now going down to 55 or 50%. So it means we cannot have more worker in the related to the population anymore. So definitely, if you do not robustly improve the labor productivity, your per capita income in going down sustainably because the contraction of the employment rate in the time to come, especially for the nation facing the problem of population aging, very much like Japan now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wu. I definitely agree with your point that definitely we need to have a kind of labor force. Definitely, like country like China or even like Japan and Vietnam, which are really facing because of the age issue, particularly in case of Japan perspective. Definitely, certainly I agree with your point. Thanks a lot for that insights. Now my next question goes to Sarimah. From industry perspective, what do you think? What are the additional information that you would be looking forward to see in the upcoming, say, APO Productivity Databook?
Thank you, Dr. Say, for that question. I really, hope that we can contribute from industry. And I believe that the APO Databook 2022 is a very insightful pack of information. Industries need to make full use of it for 3 top reasons. Yeah. Number 1 is very much about we are expecting to see how the data book can have a broader scope of data analytics. And because this is important, because data presented in the data book are useful, especially for forecasts of trend, and we use it for extrapolation purpose. And I use this a lot for this. Yeah. Secondly is that I'm looking forward for a greater scope of benchmarking. And this data book encapsulates informative data of the benchmarking, not only for Malaysia, but versus other countries as well. And why these two things are very important for us to see more from the APO data book is that because data analytics and rigorous benchmarking will lead to an effective decision making by us, the management of the companies. And this is important for us to steer our companies towards a cleaner, safer, and more prosperous future for the organization. Thank you, Dr. Zai.
Thanks a lot for your information, and definitely we take note of that your point, and we will we'll try to add or give more insights for the particular industry perspective for the coming editions. So, Dr. Wu, my next question also related with the APO Productivity Data Book, and from your research or from your analysis of the productivity data book, which Asian economies are standing out as high performers in the coming next 5 to 10 years?
That's an excellent question. Definitely, we can see a lot of vibrant efforts among the Asian country to catch up with more advanced nation. So definitely, some people say 21st century is a Asian century. So you can see a lot of things here because Japan, have been it's so inspiring to many nations here, and I surprised just even ASEAN country, all of them. Actually have the vision to become developed nation, by 2050. So just 3 decades from now, that's amazing. And here, actually supporting their vision, their realizations of the vision, actually the digital transformation, the two big, actually unprecedented revolution here, actually the digital revolution and the energy revolution. So definitely very powerful, very transformational. So we can see across nation here a lot of efforts, from Vietnam to the Philippines and India, Bangladesh. So it's not easy to actually single out some country, but here for sure. And I think we can rely more on the Asia, APO data book because the author here I think give us quite a good information on what countries standing out. So like we can see Bangladesh or Vietnam could growing at 8%. 8% is something you could not imagine before. And India still sustain 6 or to 8%. And China, of course, higher income should grow slower but still strong. So if they manage the COVID policy, zero COVID policy, actually escaping removing the COVID policy fairly well, they still isn't doing well. But of course, China face bigger problem because of geopolitical tension. So, but for definitely, I see some country like Indonesia. I like a case of Indonesia as well because for example, automakers there they leverage lithium deposit, for example, to promote electric car, for example. So the leader of this country, I think now very sophisticated in embracing the global trend to promote economic growth. So among ASEAN countries, for sure, I see Indonesia, Vietnam, and the Philippines. Malaysia, for sure, very good one, but very high performing in the past. But I'm not sure about political stability for now, so I cannot do some firm prediction now because Malaysia have wonderful potential, but up and down. Thailand the same thing. That's South Asia. For South Asia, definitely I can see India and Bangladesh stand out for sure. So that among developing countries, that's my prediction. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your wonderful predictions, and definitely, yeah, by quoting your point, like digital revolution and energy revolution is going to play a big role, particularly for these countries, like what you said, India, Bangladesh, and Vietnam, and including Indonesia, because now what you said, the lithium deposit, which could be a very vital for the automatic industries. So definitely I take note on that point. And now my next question goes to Sarimah. So definitely ASEAN is playing a big role in Asia. So being APO here sitting in Tokyo, so I'm just wondering how APO can play a kind of a more impactful role in Asian nations for the future. What is your
Yeah.
opinion on that?
I think, Dr. Sai, APU has been playing a very important role since its inception and establishment. But how they can move further, stronger, is that they can be the catalyst to spur the accelerated development productivity by leveraging on sustainable practices among the state members. And I'm happy actually to see that APO Databook has started to incorporate CO2, carbon dioxide information, where this is very real to climate change issue that we are managing, because productivity is interrelated to sustainability. So benchmarking, workshops and publications should be continued, but I wanted to see some kind of like a stronger interlinking between the productivity method that has been pushed by APO to be linked to sustainability and climate change matter. Thank you very much.
Much, Ms. Sarimah, for your. My next question goes to Dr. Wong. What discussions do you like to add in the APO data book to have in its future editions? It's a something similar question to Ms. Sarimah, but I would like to hear from you.
Great. Actually, I do believe that the APO Databook have produced a very valuable insight. However, I still want to, to see more improvement or discussion in the future edition, embracing the digital revolution and energy revolution. So have more data on this thing. For example, the adoption of cloud computing, the AI thing. So we should have a chapter on digital transformation across 31 Asian economy or energy revolution. How much renewable energy produced, or the integration, something like that. So data on this thing definitely foster the efforts of policymaker to rethink about what they are doing. They should do better. In addition, I also like this kind of platform. This year I truly enjoy. I think it's a very big, development among Asian countries, because now we have a platform to share just our view, expert view. And I hope next year, in 2023, so in addition to a data book, we should have some supplements, to discuss the story, because some countries come up with some quite interesting policy initiative. So that we can share among 31 countries, and you can invite the representative from those countries to discuss their story on this platform. That should be amazing. And definitely Asia should show the world that we are actually the future of the world, actually, and playing the role of example. That's the more powerful thing in driving prosperity across nation. So peace, partnership, and productivity should go together, hand in hand. Thank you. South.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry for that. We have noted down your points on the suggestions to include particularly the digital transformation, and also what you have been mentioning, that the energy revolution. So how it could be interlinked for because the next 5-10 years, it's going to be more of a digital transformation, and definitely the country readiness for digital transformation is going to play a big role in countries, like a productivity performance for each country. Definitely we will include in our future editions after we discuss with our stakeholders. Thanks a lot for that, your nice, wonderful suggestions. My next question goes to Ms. Sarimah. From one of your presentations, what you mentioned, that particularly I'm quite very curious to know that the economic performance by production in mining and quarrying increased from minus 0.5% in Q2 to 9.2% in Q3. This is really very phenomenal growth in the mining and quarrying section. So I'm just curious to understand what exactly happened, why this kind of phenomenal growth between this one quarter compared to other industries, say service or industry.
Yeah. For information, Dr. Sai, in Malaysia, we are one of the biggest producer of oil and gas in ASEAN, and in terms of the incremental, what you call percentage in terms of economy under this sector is mainly contributed by oil and gas, LNG and condensate. Others will be more on the contributed by the mining, for example, metal, like bauxites and other related metal and non-metallic as well. So the growth in this sector was enormous because being a developing country, Malaysia will still needs what I call it, a longer pathway for us to transit into renewable energy. So until that moment has come where Malaysia has made a commitment of net zero by 2050, and until another two or three decades from now, Malaysia will still be establishing our pathway towards a transition of cleaner energy. But until then, the sector in terms of mining related to oil and gas will grow. If not linear, will be exponentially. Yeah, so that's the way that we're seeing this, how this economy is growing to support the prosperity of the nation.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Sarimah. I well understood that point, because that I was not getting very clear on that point. So it's now very
Yes.
clear. Thanks a lot for sharing your thoughts. Now, my next question goes to Dr. Wu. Particularly in next year, like outlook perspective point of view, what could be the most formidable challenges that we could see in emerging, like in 2023? What is your opinion on that?
Thank you. I think three formidable challenges we may have to foresee or anticipate. The first one, the Russia-Ukraine war. We do not know what would happen next, so somehow this day, people still intensify their effort to fight against each other. And Russia actually may try to conquer, Ukraine in many ways with more heavy, weapons, something like that. That's what we cannot expect. Like in January 2022, we could not imagine that Russia could invade Ukraine. So now the war actually happening in nearly 1 year, 10 months already. And what next? We do not know. So of course, we also have some hope that, Russia could realize that here's a big mistake, strategic mistake. They should withdraw if possible. That's good news. But we should be prepared for the chance that they intensify the war. So we do not know yet. That's one big formidable challenge. You do not know, up to the nuclear war or whatever. We do not know. But at least, very intensive war and killing a lot more people and more seriously affect Europe. At least, The second one, actually, the trade war and the geopolitical tension between the U.S. and Western country and China. So I think two sides should sit down together to think about 100 years from now, rather than try to achieve some short-sighted gains. What not good, I don't think it's good idea to make any invasion or conquering any territory this day. Have tried to produce a prosperity and make our climates better, our earth healthier, so that we have some legacy for our future generation, rather than claiming some territory or some wealth for the current generation. I don't think it's fair. Both sides have to rethink about this thing seriously. And the third one, we should be ready for any kind of, global pandemic like a COVID or natural disaster, whatever. Because this day we have, more than 8 billion people and a lot of problem with climates. So we should, be prepared for any disaster or crisis that could happen. That make us more united and more responsible for what we are doing now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wu. That was very, very insightful. The opinion about the emerging challenges. Definitely, those kind of challenges will not happen. But let's hope for the best, so that we'll have more kind of peaceful time in coming years. Then, Ms. Sarimah, just I would like to have your final kind of key message for our audience today, because we have ended up all your questions. Now, just a final message, what you'd like to deliver for our audience.
Okay, my message is very simple. I would like to encourage industries and the audience to make full use of the platform that has been created by APO, because a lot of resources and work has been done. Is such a waste if we do not make use of it. And I am one of the beneficiary of it, and I would like to encourage everyone else and more people to be using the publication and participate more rapidly in terms of the programs organized by APO. Thank you, Dr. Zaid.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sarimah. And Dr. Wu, any final key message from you?
I think actually we have a great platform now, and we should try to leverage it as much as possible to make our Asia more prosperous and collaborative, and productive. So I actually echoes Miss Sarimah's message. Definitely, please, work closely together and more closely with APO so that we can make something unthinkable before now reality for all of us, and it could be the example of the world to follow, to enhance and to foster peace, partnership and productivity across the nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for our guest speakers today for sharing your valuable insights and comments on the 2022 productivity trend and outlook for 2023. And I believe all our viewers found your information and our discussion very useful today. Hope we will see the positive trend and outlook in 2023. And as you know, APO Productivity Talk will be held every week, featuring leading experts on different domains and sectors. So please subscribe this APO channel and stay tuned. And please stay safe and enjoy your holiday season, and wish you everyone wonderful, prosperous and productivity New Year 2023. Goodbye.
Thank you.